so what I thought we'd do is get a little comfortable and build a frame around how to look at the art world in a more abstract way. And lots of people I talked to in the art world over the last 5 or 6 years since I've left Christie's has said, you know, technology is just, it's not going to work. You have to see the art in person. You have to be there. You have to touch it. No one's going to bid if they haven't come and seen the artwork. How many of you believe that? How many of you believe this is how the artwork works today? How the art world works today? Is everybody who bids on art comes and sees the artwork?
I think it really depends. If it's a photo on Diasec, maybe you can just see a photo of it. If it's a sculpture, it's a different thing.
Okay.
I think the price points also.
Price points? So you feel comfortable, let's say you're in the market for a $9 million Ming vase. Are you going to see this piece?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you are, right?
Oh, yeah.
No matter where it is in the world, right? It's the most expensive piece sold on Christie's Live without it ever being seen. So with that said, I know, shocking, right? At least I woke you up. We're not giving you coffee, so I figured I'd give you some facts. So which platform has been selling art online the longest? Anybody have any idea? No? All right, well, I don't have an answer to it yet. This is leading up to something. So take a wild guess.
I don't think Paddle is still
They are. The longest, Paddle 8. Okay. Anybody else? Please. Sotheby's. Anybody else?
I'm gonna say something ridiculous like Craigslist.
Craigslist?
More like eBay.
eBay? I bought my first work of art on eBay 13 years ago. Yeah, I bought a Robert Indiana. I sold it yesterday on ArtNet auctions for like a 300% profit. And it wasn't fake, thank God, because I never knew that. So anyone else? Okay. Second question. What is the most expensive work ever sold online? You wanna know?
Was that Modigliani bought online?
Possible. I'll give you a hint. Let's start this. How do you define online? How do all of you define the word online?
Using the web.
Using the web. Anyone else? No?
Anything that's offline.
Anything that's offline, like anything that's not in person?
Yeah.
Okay. Like a telephone?
Yeah.
Okay. So most of the most expensive pieces, like the Picasso, are all sold by telephone bidders who never saw the piece. Telephone bidders have been around since 1964. So online has just innovated itself from telephones with cords to just the web. So it's not something new. And this is something that's always so intriguing to me because the telephone bidding booth at Christie's was always the busiest bidding section of the room. So I did a little research and I found this article from 1984. And this was taken exactly from the article. And it says, telephone bidding has altered the course of many art auctions since it began being used in 1964. Back then, online was on the telephone. And people who were online didn't come see the piece, right? In a 1930s American painting, which sold for more than 5 times what the house expected, everyone was on the telephone bidding against each other and no one was bidding in the room. The buyer was bidding from somewhere in Missouri. That was 1984. So how do you feel about the word online now? So is online bidding an invention or an innovation?
Evolution.
Sorry?
Evolution.
It's an evolution, right? So the difference between innovation and invention is something I tend to teach quite a bit lately in the last few years. What's an invention? An invention is like the light bulb, the wheel, the telephone, right? And innovation is when you make an invention better and better and better, right? So if you look at the word online and you look at it from an innovative standpoint, you're looking at something that hasn't changed, it's just gotten better, right? It's still a form of communication. It's still a form of connecting the world in ways that we would have never known that someone in Missouri was going to go for a 1930s folk art piece. What did it do? It opened the doors to connecting, to building a community, And that's essentially how I see online, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on a cell phone, whether it's on Zoom, that's what online is. Now, I guess the next question is, how do you trust that online is as real as offline? Where does that trust come from? So,
Reviews.
sorry?
Reviews.
Reviews, branding,
Yeah.
right? Branding becomes super important. You trust Christie's.
Yeah.
So that gentleman who purchased that Ming vase when I was at Christie's and we launched Christie's Live auctions, he trusted the brand. He had actually never bought anything from Christie's before. But he trusted the brand, and we made sure we didn't break that trust. And that's, to me, what a successful online platform does. And since we're talking about trading art online, I thought we could frame it around building trust, because that's essentially what it is. It's an innovation from the telephone, from a face-to-face, to building a community that you would have never known loved 1930s folk art somewhere in Missouri, right? So what I've done here is I've shown you what was invented, which is the telephone, and I've shown you the innovation from telephone bidding to online bidding. So eBay provides you pretty much all the same information you would get if you were standing in front of a specialist. Information, not collaboration, not a sense of, back and forth between one human to another, but information. It is providing you the same exact. If we look at this piece, which, by the way, this is a real bid. I checked it out yesterday. And I'm an Indiana collector. I don't know if all of you collect, but for me, I find Indiana to be one of the most fascinating people. And I realized, $295,000 on eBay. Would I bid on it? Where would your eyes go immediately to build trust if you really wanted this Indiana? To this, who said that? Good. Whoever said that? The seller. Yeah. So my eyes immediately went to the seller. That's actually something that an old world auction house wouldn't let you know. So the transparency of data is super important as we help evolve the art world. So I happen to know Gal Art. It used to be a client of ours when I worked at ArtNet Auctions, and I've actually visited his site in Florida. And he's got, believe it or not, he's got a print and painting gallery in a strip mall somewhere outside of Miami. And I've seen his space, and he just collects everything Indiana and he resells it. He's a seller. So because I see his 1,399 positive reviews, I've seen him before. I'm gonna trust that it's real, right? Is that enough though? Not really. Do I trust eBay?
No.
You don't trust eBay? Never. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Would you still make an offer if eBay promised you that it could prove if it's fake, that they would refund you the money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christie's does that too. Christie's got caught with a couple fakes sometimes, typically in American furniture. I don't know how that goes, but I'm not a specialist, but we caught a wind chime once that was fake, 500,000. We had to give the money back. So it happens, we're all still human. So what else do you need to know? If you absolutely could afford this and you had the disposable income and you loved Indiana, what would stop you from bidding on this? Condition issues. Excellent. What if I put a chat window here where you could talk to Gal Art?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, there's no right answers. I'm just gauging where we are in the art world. So don't, speak up. This is just me learning more. It's located in the United States. It's offering free shipping, right? PayPal, right? Super easy, much easier. How many of you have bought anything at auction, at a brick and mortar auction these days? Okay, how long did it take you to get the piece, get payment, all that stuff? What's the turnaround time these days?
So it varies depending on the department, but sometimes pretty quick.
Good.
Sometimes a little slower.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's a little alarming to say it varies depending on the department if you're thinking of a customer-centric, human-centric approach, right? It shouldn't vary. If you bought it, let's say at XYZ auction house, you should be able to get the same experience no matter what you bought. So it is a little bit concerning. for me, because now I'm in the innovation phase. And it used to be the same at Christie's. It varies, right? If you bought a Damien Hirst, believe it or not, it took about 180 days to get back with Damien Hirst.
You have to paint it.
Yeah, you might as well paint it, exactly. You might as well, you could put yourself through art school and paint it. So I wanted to just leave an imprint with you. I'm not here to convince anyone to buy anything online. I'm not part of any online entity, but I did want you all to leave here knowing that this is growing. That 13 years ago, I bought an Indiana online on eBay, and it was the scariest thing I could have ever done. And I thought it ironic that now I'm looking at this Indiana going, I would bid on that. Where if this was 13 years ago, there's no way I probably would have reported them as fake without even checking, right? So the world is changing, the world is evolving, and innovation is hitting the art world. And it's hitting the art world on the buy and sells. So here are some of the highlights. I took this straight out of Hiscox. I love their highlight reel, right? So I thought we'd go through some of these. And if you have any comments, please raise your hand, both online and off. And I'm happy to highlight any of them. So online art market sales up despite slowing global market. True. Brick and clicks are gaining ground. So what are brick and clicks? Brick and clicks are like Sotheby's or Christie's, right? They started out as a brick, but you now have the click, which last year's Hiscox report says Christie's is the #1 online seller of art. So they're doing really well. Hesitant art buyers remain unconvinced about buying art online. Yep, you guys all seem pretty unconvinced, so that's probably true. Third-party sales channels are gaining in popularity. Yeah, I believe that. There's lots of private sales, and that hits data. You know, there are 3 important pillars to buying art, whether you buy it off or on. And data is very, very important. And the access of data and the access of information. And I think the demand for more transparency is going to grow just as much as online or offline grows. The balance of power could be shifting back to the traditional art market. I think I'd challenge that. How do you all feel? Are you all going to get up and go into an art gallery, an art fair, and an auction house to bid? Or is one weighted more heavily than the other? Or would you look online? If you had to choose one for the year 2018, if you were only able to use one channel to purchase art, which one would it be?
I would probably say art fair because you can make really good deals on the last day.
Good job. Yeah, she's right. She's right. And that's an interesting thing to say. You can make really good deals on the last day. Yeah. There's always this after sale market that everyone forgets in the art trading world, which is a great one. Business models are converging towards a one-stop shop. I mean, it's always been a one-stop shop, right? You can ship it, sell it, store it, view it, buy it, restore it. It just has all these vendors. That doesn't change in the brick and click. Where it's problematic and where it's challenging is in the online world. In the online world, you can have a seamless transaction. But the pre-sale and the post-sale, which has always been very challenging, right? To get the piece to the buyer, to have it conditioned, to check for authenticity, to get the payment, to divide the payment among all the vendors, all of that is still a huge challenge online. And that's the one-stop shop that Christie's has kind of mastered in the offline world. My guess is they're starting to create mastery of that in the online world, which is why they're the #1 platform right now to change, because they already had that brick and mortar system going. The majority of online art platforms expect to see more industry consolidation, right? We've all heard about Paddle8 and Auctionata. Auctionata is no more. Paddle8 is now independent. I agree. I think there's going to be a lot more consolidation. I think, you know, if you were to ask me, honestly, who the leader online would be, I wouldn't be able to guess. I think the online world is going to surprise us a lot. And based on whether you're going to join the second part of this event or the following event in the next week or so, you're going to learn a lot more about blockchain technology and how that takes the data component and makes it more transparent than the art world has ever known. Okay? So who's buying what, which has always been an anonymous feeling, may start to change, and how that would affect the art world. So if we were to chart the essentials, as I had said earlier, the essentials for me are data, news, and experience, right? So data is What was the purchase price before I bid on it? How many times has it been bought or sold? What are the conditions? Is there a catalog resume? That's data, and that's valuable data. And I think we all probably go to the same place to get that if we're collectors. Where does everyone go? Raise your hand if you go to ArtNet. Right, it's a great site, great platform, right? 25 years, 26 years, great platform, hasn't been able to be replicated, right? Amazing, simple business model. So news, where does everyone go to get their art news? Artsy, right? Amazing news content. I think without them even realizing it, they're going to turn into a great media company, and it's very well needed. And they may actually capture some data as well. I think Stas is online, so Stas, you can raise your hand if you have a question here. She went to get coffee. I bet you would. Let's talk about experience a little. So, how do you feel about? Okay. How do you feel about experience? What's the best art experience you could imagine for yourself? Is it to actually make a purchase, or is it actually to experience it? Experience the buy, the sell, the view, the competition in the room. What is it about buying art or selling art that keeps you in the art world? Or is it even about buying and selling art? Does experience have to include the buy and the sell?
I think it has a lot to do with the story of it too, whether the story is being told by a gallerist or whether it's online. This idea of story comes into play.
Yeah, Robin's exactly right. The greatest part about the art world for me is the story. I don't think I would have loved Rothko as much if I didn't know how he grew up, how he lived. I don't know if I would have liked Gustav Klimt as much if I didn't know he had an affair for all those years, and most of those were inspirational pieces. If you didn't know that, sorry, spoiler. So, for me, the experience has nothing to do with the buy or sell. The buy or sell is just a nice add-on. For some people, the buy or sell is everything. But for people who live in the art world or work in the art world, it's our responsibility to provide an experience multi-dimensionally. And I feel like that whoever can corner that part of the business model will corner the art market in its entirety. And it's all about experience. And if you're in any sort of public community of the art world, you'll hear people saying millennials want experience. They're not into objects. This is all true. This is all absolutely true. I even want the experience. I can't run around and buy a Magritte. I would love to buy a Magritte, but I want the experience of it. I think that's probably why millennials are all heading out to pilgrimage like Burning Man, right? Burning Man is just one gigantic art fair and a lot of other stuff, but one gigantic art fair. But they don't buy anything. They experience this art. And when I ask my students at Sotheby's, how many of you go to Burning Man? 2 have gone. The others all were intrigued and want to go because it's experiential. And for me, the question of who will corner the market in the art world, it's whoever corners that experiential level, and that's the future of art. So I've, Brick and Click has been kind of coined by Hiscox. So I'm going to coin Just Click. So Just Click would be Paddle8, Auctionata. Does Artsy buy and sell art actively? I think she's really just.
We just need to, I think, maybe
unmute it.
More. Like,
what should I do?
More.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
One chat. Should we chat that?
Uh-huh.
Hi, we will be starting at 12. Okay, that was just
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll unmute her maybe at the end of the session.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep in mind.
So, whenever you're deciding where to experience art, whether your experience is defined as buy or sell or just view and learn and experience, data, news, experience is all, for me, those pillars of the art market that we have to look at. And especially if we're forced to use only one platform, which nobody should be these days. But sometimes people just want the one-stop shop. And for me, it's data, news, and experience. And I haven't found one single space, whether it's offline or online, that can provide all 3. And that's a wonderful place to be. It means we're all exploring. So feedback is ultra important these days. So here's a list of some of the places that I've experienced, both online and offline. It's a bit overwhelming. I wanted to add a lot more, but I would have gone through pages and pages. But what I can urge you to do is to put yourself in an exploration mode. And I can't say you should only buy online, and I can't say you should only live offline. And I don't believe that it has anything to do with pricing, because I've seen very, very expensive pieces go online without even a shutter. What I can advise, if I were to advise, is, you're going to have to live both for a while. So create that avatar, play with emojis. You're going to have to live in both. If you truly enjoy the art world, though, there's going to need to be a virtual experience and an offline experience as well for the time being. And if you like, duality and Salvador Dali and Magritte, this is probably a great time for you to be alive and in the art world, because it's very surreal. Does anyone have any questions? So this is me being a little more academic. So the one-stop shop, as I had said, data, news, and experience for me are very, very important. So for me, experience, if I'm buying or selling art, is how difficult was it for me to get my piece up online, or how difficult was it for me to get my piece to the brick and mortar space? How quickly did I get my payment if I'm selling, or how quickly did I get my piece if I'm buying? Was the condition accurate, right? So for me, it's about now. How fast is this moving offline versus online, right? So when I was at Christie's, about 7 years ago, we looked at experience, and in a very rudimentary way, which right now I would consider should be standard expectation. What we did is we realized that there's this layer of buyer's remorse when someone buys something at auction, because you get caught up in that competition, you get caught up in the desire, right? Which is one of the reasons people buy art, is desire. And so what we did is we had a few team members with stopwatches stand in the auction room, and as soon as someone won a piece, we hit the stopwatch and we watched them go through the process of paying for it, collecting it, and walking out the door. That process took roughly an hour and a half. Buyer's remorse, where they wanted to return the piece, happened at 20 minutes. So for us, the experience was awful, and we needed to correct that. We needed everything to happen within 15 minutes, because we don't want anyone to regret buying a work of art. A work of art is a beautiful thing that you pass along to generations. So where we are today in terms of experience, news, and data is, what I consider the standard expectations in any other luxury market industry. But the art world, for some reason, has gotten away with simple things like, can I just pay and walk out the door with this? They've gotten away with substandard experiences. And that's what we identified at Christie's over 7 years ago, and we focused on that. And so did Sotheby's. And I think with the push online, there's more of a push to look at this word experience as a standard expectation. Customer experience, client experience, your user experience. And that word wouldn't have been there if I was giving this talk 3, 4, 5 years ago. News, the transparency of data and news is something very new to the art market. Right? Knowing who owns all the 900 some odd Rothkos, knowing what it's sold for, that used to be a very difficult thing to find out before ArtNet, or you had to pay a lot of money to join ArtNet. Now you can start to see, I think I counted roughly 80 price databases around the world online. ArtNet is the most expensive. There are some that are free, but this concept of data, could be a whole other talk. Should art data be free? Why shouldn't art data be free? It's like if Google charged you for every search. When you put it into that perspective, it doesn't make sense. Why should we? So that's partially why I say, things that are completely standard in other parts of the luxury world seem to be still something we're striving for in the art world, which is your standard transparency of data. I think the future, which again, I'm not bold enough to tell you what the future will hold, will be considered value-added experiences. So how to create a memory. Let's say I did like Magritte, but I never had an experience with a Magritte, whether it was my family loving it, or whether someone had an experience with the artist, or I had some sort of relationship with the piece. What if one day in the future, you can buy an experience to connect with an artist, to connect with a work? art. And I think that's where the world is going to, is inventing experiences for you to create a memory. And the beginning stages of that is the growth of things like Burning Man and art fairs. Art fairs are experiences. You know, they're very, very broad-based, gigantic experiences, sometimes quite overwhelming, but it is another form of experiencing art. So I think we're here. We're just now realizing, and when I say we, I mean, I think the clients, the buyers, the sellers, the academics are all voicing their opinion and giving feedback, which is pushing the industry experts to change and to look at technology and to look at art as an asset class, or to look at artists that aren't famous, that aren't being purchased by multi-billionaires. You know, it's a discovery again. And I think that's what online trading means to me. It's become discovery. And I think somewhere along the lines, we lost that. That art is meant for an exploration. It's meant for a bonding experience. It's discovery. And I'd love to see galleries and art fairs and on the online world look at it as an element of discovery for every human. Hi.
I'm an artist and I want to sell my art online. I've previously sold my art in art fairs and galleries and that kind of thing. I've never sold it on my website and I've never sold online. How would an individual artist go about it, or which platform would you recommend?
Well, I think if there's a networking opportunity here, you'll meet a few people that actually have platforms for new artists.
Okay.
For me, you know, my mind tends to always gravitate towards answers on the business side of art. That's how I was trained. That's what I teach. For me, the first thing I would ask you is how did in the olden days, how did you get traffic? How did you get people's eyes onto a piece, onto an artist? What was the original way that it happened?
An event?
An event sponsored by a gallery.
Yeah.
At some point, you'd have to be at an art fair. You'd have to get gallery representation. Well, what if that was turned in an abstract way online? So you, as a sole artist, can eventually grow to just have everyone come to your website. But before you do that, you'll need some type of traffic hub or representation. So my suggestion to you would be to look at online galleries, look at the ArtNet space. There's a great one called Art Tap. You might want to check it out. The founder's here today. I won't point her out, but if she wants to meet you, she can. I think, you know, anything online that already drives traffic for an interested community in discovery of artists. It's
My traffic has been press, because I got a lot of press for
great.
my work, and then the traffic organically came from the press. But now I'm at a point where the press is sort of dwindling down, and every time I do something new or I do an event, the press goes up. But I want to be able to have more control on the process.
What's your medium? Are you?
I do photography.
Photography. It's a great. I buy all my photography online. It's a great space online. Any discovery community for art online. I mean, I would just, you know, Google it and find out, you know, who the top players are. But photography is a fantastic. It's one of my. It's also a starter. You know, for me, in order to appreciate art, I started collecting photography. Mapplethorpe. It's too expensive, but I always wanted. But I bought all his books. But that's a great question, and I think the more you get out there and meet people, you're going to find lots of people are building online communities to discover new artists. There are lots. I actually have a student at Sotheby's Institute right now that's buying and selling and promoting art all in a virtual way. Just drop me your contact information at the end of class, and I'll put you in touch, and at least you can talk to each other.
Great.
Yeah, and another way, if I may suggest, we are also going to have this LinkedIn group. So everybody here hopefully joins it. So people with the platforms, people with other connections can maybe help you in your search.
Thank you so much.
As well.
That'd be great.
Yes.
I've been interested in like the bringing technology into our infrastructure for a very long time. But like you said, that there is like currently no platform that combines everything data and user experience at the moment. I think just because it needs this combination of our experience and really good at the tech team and also capital. And at the moment, it's really hard to get everything. Just take example, like say inventory management system for galleries. Like big mega galleries, they all have their in-house tech team building their in-house systems. But it's really helpful. There are other companies that are building inventory management systems, say Exhibit, like they're doing a great job. But I think it's also hard for them to make the money, and also it's hard for gallery to pay that much money to have a good system. So what's your, how does this start? How can you bring the technology? You really need a strong tech team to have a good product, and also bring down the cost for the user, the gallerist, or everyone. And you have to know the artwork. It's just like so hard to bring all the elements together. So,
I mean, it's definitely not an easy industry, and I think a couple of people have been trying to answer this question, and I mean, I could advise you to not stop asking this question. When I first started looking at technology and art about 8 years ago, this stuff just didn't exist, right? But if I now, look at what exists and look back to where I started, it's just moved. There has been improvement. You just need to, it's just one of those industries that's not going to embrace it as quickly, right? Let's think of another industry. So real estate, right? Another industry that really hasn't taken on technology as some sort of support or community building. Why do you think that is? It's very similar to the art world, right? Because there's a brokerage component, there's a buyer, there's a seller. Why hasn't the real estate industry also jumped onto technology?
Well, it has in a lot of ways, and Compass is a great example.
There you go.
of that.
So my suggestion to you is whenever you feel like this is overwhelming and it's not happening fast enough, is jump to another industry and look what they're doing and see if there's an application that you can pull out of that and move back into the art world. For me, real estate is a great one. And sometimes I think, there's a fear factor. There's also the non-transparency factor. These are all challenges, but they're not stoppage. It's just a hurdle, right? The more problems there are in the art world, the more opportunities there will be, and that's the way I look at it. If there were no problems in the art world, this would be a very boring conversation. So just keep looking at it and keep comparing it to other industries. But it will happen. It's happened tremendously. I mean, I could go back to the Indiana picture on eBay and show you, 13 years ago, I don't think that would have existed.
And one of the companies that's doing inventory management for the galleries, one of the major ones, Artbinder, is going to be one of the speakers at our course. I think it's going to be, it's going to be on November 14th. So Alexandra, she has a great experience in the inventory management for the galleries. And I think now she's actually building a platform for collectors as well. So it's going to be really interesting to hear from her.
Let's take a step back. About 2% of the American population actually invests or purchases art. And that's the origin of the real dilemma, that we aren't keeping pace at the beginning of the cycle of forming people to become art lovers, art buyers. We're just trying to service the ones that have the means and the intellectual capacity and the backup to be able to do medium and high end. Meantime, we're creating an enormous body of new students emerging as artists, and the brick and mortar is drying up, and they have no chance whatsoever to take a giant leap and suddenly find themselves on a major website. So there's big, like Swiss cheese, there's big gaps, big opportunities. What I would look for and hope for is that all of these major investments in selling art add a component that's the educational side of it. How do you form a collector? Don't just wait for those collectors who are in the know and have all the backup to show up. Don't fight for the same 2%.
I can't agree with you more, and it's through communities. And I can't imagine building community or educating art without the online world anymore. I mean, look at what Elena's doing. This this is the beginning stages of building a passion for art, and hope that a passion for art translates into a purchase of art or following an artist. And I think you're absolutely correct. It's through education and community building. Everybody needs and desires a sense of community. And for that, I can honestly tell you that the online world can provide that more seamlessly and much faster than the brick and mortar world. I think that's where we need to start. And we do have to thank Elena for identifying that and then launching something like this. And I hope it grows into being, massive. And through that, yeah, we will expand that 2% hopefully to 90%. Yeah.
I'd like very another question.
Do you think it would be possible in the future to remove the third sort of authoritative entity like Sotheby's or somebody else expert from that
The specialist.
specialist? Through say blockchain, and if somebody finds a way how to put authenticate the art, for example.
I'll be very honest with you. I think there are a lot of heavy tech lovers that feel that they can remove the specialist with a simple algorithm. I'm going to strongly, and I'm a huge tech fan, I'm going to strongly disagree. I think what will happen is the role of the specialist will change tremendously. And that role will turn more into someone that you'll connect with. Now, whether the person is online in a virtual reality, that's just a means for connection. But I don't think it will eliminate the need for humans to connect with each
There
other.
could be minors or authenticators.
Yeah.
For example.
I mean, that's how they start, right? Specialists begin with an art history degree. They grow into a certain genre. They become specialists in a specific medium or a specific era. And I think the lack of technology and all of the holes in the Swiss cheese industry has added much more onto their plates and removed a bit of their passion. I think with the onslaught of technology, you're going to see the specialists do what they really love, is be a specialist and be able to carry a conversation and educate you and have a very entertaining conversation with each other. So I think the role of the specialist will change in a much better way with things like blockchain. You don't have to worry about making the sale. They'll just have to come and have a conversation about something that you mutually love or are interested in. So I don't agree that the specialists will go away. I think their roles will evolve into something they probably always wish they could do, is just talk about art all the time. Not worry about the transaction or the condition. All of that can be done with an algorithm. But the actual connection between two humans, I mean, we could get into AI and robotics, but maybe we should do a class on AI.
Yeah. That sounds good.
But no, I think there are simple things that humans crave, and it's a basic human desire, and that basic human desire is a sense of purpose and a sense of community. Now, whether that community is virtual, with a robot, with another human, it doesn't change the need. It just changes the channel to fill that need and desire. And I think that's what online is doing. But no, I'm not into eliminating the role of the specialist. I honestly, I don't think I would have stayed in the art world if it weren't for certain specialists. They are the art world, and I think we need to help them just fulfill their dream.